Hi, we're Maddie and Nico, and we are turning this empty cargo van into this tiny home on wheels. We have no building experience, but we'll take you along each step as we transform our 2020 Ford Transit van. In this video, we're building our bed frame and bump outs. In our van build, we are planning to sleep side to side without adding flares. Luckily, the Ford Transit is wider than a Sprinter van, but we'll need to make bed bump outs so Nico, who's 6 feet tall, can fit comfortably. So we've already fixed this board to be this outer edge of our bed frame. Then we have this one, which I need to put into place. And that's gonna be where we're gonna put our cross boards across to the other side. So we'll need to put another board low on this part here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some pocket holes in that. And then over here, we put some screws. So that way we're gonna put a piece of wood there because our mattress the plan is to bring it kind of out around this corner. We'll have to cut the corner of our mattress to fit.
So we just finished this side. Got the support here, and then the three supports coming down. Now we're gonna do it on this side. Okay, now I got this rail in. Just gotta cut support beams here. Got my supports cut, now I just gotta pocket hole them.
A lot of the materials used in our bed frame, including these pieces of angled steel, are actually recycled from my dad's childhood bunk bed, which his dad built for him and his brother. We cut 3 of these angled steel pieces down to the length of the width of our van and pre-drilled holes in each end for screws. They will be used to support the bed slats. The plan is to put 2 metal L's on the edges facing upward to hold the sides of the mattress and 1 in the middle facing downward to support the middle of the slats, so we had to cut a slit in each side of our framing to accommodate the downward facing L. Once the slit was cut, we put the angled steel in place and screwed it into the frame. Oh yeah. She's sturdy.
How sturdy?
Sturdy as a rock.
We got our bed frame in yesterday. We used these angle pieces of steel. There's 3 of them. And then we cut some slats just out of some random wood we had laying around.
How's it feel?
I fit.
You do fit. You normally sleep on your side too.
Yeah, but I'm wearing shoes which are 1 inch thick.
Try it on your side though. Go in your normal sleeping position.
Look, you can be right here.
We didn't even need to make it this wide. Oh yeah. We can sleep in it.
Next step is going to be, I'm going to sand all these things down and then coat them with polyacrylic.
We use this varnish that my dad had left over from some other project because we don't care how the slats look, we just needed them protected against moisture. Right now we are attaching our bed slats, and we wanted these to be removable so that way they don't have to be in here the whole time we're working on other van projects. Also, if we ever want to take the bed out and take the slats out and store something big in here, I don't know, they can be removed. And we didn't want to just have them sitting on there because they kind of rattle. So our solution is we got some pretty strong Velcro, and we are going to be putting Velcro pieces underneath each of these slats. So that should just hold them in place enough that they don't rattle, but then they can easily be removed later on if we need to.
So I measured the inside edge of the box that we're going to build. It's like 74 inches.
Oh really? Can we press on our...
It's fine. It's still 2 inches more than me.
Okay. To make the bump outs, we first cut a piece of wood tapered slightly to the shape of the van so it's a bit wider near the middle of the van and narrower towards the back of the van. We did this first taper with a circular saw, but stay tuned for a better method using a table saw. Then Nico marked where the steel beams lined up on the wood so we could route out a space for them in the bump out. All right, it is a new day now. We have fresh brains. This whole box bump out thing was kind of making all of our heads hurt a little bit. But yeah, we're feeling good about it. So now we're gonna do a taper cut on a table saw, and I'm gonna show you what I learned from the internet on how to do this, because didn't know how to do this before. Basically, this sideboard of our bump out box needs to be tapered. It gets wider at the top and is more narrow at the bottom here. So we have lined up the back edge of the board, and then we've made a mark on that front edge for where we need to cut it off. But it'll be the same width at that end of our board. And that allows our wall to come down and be flush with the edge of this bed bump out. Now that we have our line there, we're gonna take our measuring tape and measure the width of that, so 7/16. Then we cut a little piece of wood that is 7/16 in width. We're gonna attach that to our board. So we have our block here. This creates this space between this board, and then we've just lined up the saw with the very edge of this board. So there you have our tapered sliver we cut off in our board.
So now it fits perfectly flush on the outside here and the back side, but the top is wider.
And is this flush with that? Should be. Yeah. Alright, so today we are cutting a little inset for our LED strip lights. These are strip lights in a little tube. So here's our strip light there. And then we just got these silicone tubes because they're the thinnest channel for LED lights to fit in. And we're using a dado on the table saw to cut this. You could also use a router if you have the right size bit. But we just cut this channel here, and that's where our lights are gonna live. So we're putting that on the two top parts of our bed bump out box. So we have to make our little taper
block.
Space this out so that way we can get the channel, will be on the opposite side of this board down the middle. To figure out the size of this block, you take the width of the largest side and you subtract the width of the smallest side, and that will be how wide you need your taper block to be. And then you just tape your taper block on. You'll need a longer piece of wood so that way that block stays flush against an edge the whole way down.
Marking my middle on this board, so I know where to line up this.
Okay. There we have our cut.
Beautiful.
Did we not measure this the right way?
Well,
Is it just really stretched?
We stretched it. Now we're gonna test our light strip that we just put in. We got a 12-volt battery charger that we're just using as some power. Boom. We have light. And then we'll also put this on a dimmer.
It won't be
because it's
as
pretty damn
shockingly bright. Looks pretty cool though.
It does look kind of cool.
We're now assembling the frame of the box, and we're gonna glue it and use the nail gun and nail it together. There she is. That looks pretty good. Alright, it's a new day here. We are just working on a few different little projects. Right now, we are building another bump out in the kitchen actually, because we figured may as well take advantage of this space here, and we'll put our backsplash kind of surrounding this window in the kitchen, because we'll have our sink there and our stove there. So yeah, we're working on building that box right now, using the same technique for those boxes. Haven't assembled that side of the bed bump out yet because we're waiting to get some of our outlets that we're going to put on either side of that bump out. So we want to drill those holes in before we assemble that box. The box is assembled for this side, but it is in the garage right now. It's just waiting on us to put it back on it. So after we finish this frame of this box, then we'll put the back on the other one. We have to go to work today, so we didn't get too much done, but I'll show you kind of what we did. We made all the supports here underneath this board. We cut this piece to fit the taper of the van wall. We started cutting some of these side pieces. They're here. They just need a couple adjustments to fit because the van also tapers as it goes up that way. So it's pretty complicated. It takes a lot of trial and error, but that's where we're at today, and we will see you tomorrow. Once our 12-volt outlets arrived, we got to work drilling 2 holes in either side of the bump outs for the outlets to fit. I believe the bit we used was 1 1/8 inches. And so there we have our 12-volt outlet. We can put a USB adapter inside, and that will be on either side of our bed. Next, we soldered some wire to the LED strip lights where we cut the strip. This is only necessary where you make a cut since the other ends will already have wire attached.
Hey guys, it's the next day. We got both our boxes built. We got one down here and one over here. This is the one we did yesterday with all the holes and the solder. So it's all glued up and nailed, so it's all sturdy now. What I'm gonna do is take this leftover 5mm plywood that we have, and then this one does not have a window, so it's just gonna be one solid piece. I just need to trace it out, cut the plywood, glue, and then nail it to the back. So I got my back cut out now. Fits up nicely. I'm gonna go around the edges with some wood glue. And then I've got my staple gun all set up.
Okay, we have our box in place. This is where it's gonna go. We're gonna let the glue dry a bit, I think, before we actually attach her in.
So all we need now is these little blocks to support here.
Support it around
here.
the top and left side because it rests on this bottom one and lines up with this post here. Today we are actually putting our bed bump out into the van finally. So we're gonna glue and nail it in. Okay.
Solid.
Box is in.
Now it's time to do our box on the passenger side. It's the box that has the window right here. I wish we would have kept our cardboard template when we cut this window in the side of the van. It would have made this a lot easier. Maddie saw someone use wax paper and then trace it and then just do some measurements, and then they cut the wood, and it worked out just fine. So that's what I'm gonna try. So I tried the wax paper method and I couldn't get it to stick to the wall. So I switched over to finding a piece of cardboard and then finding something that matched the arch on the sides of the window, which ended up being the edge of this tape roll. It actually works out almost perfectly. So I marked the edge of the tape where the straight lines meet up with the curve, and then I copied it onto here. Still gotta cut this side and this side. I've got my frame all lined up, nice and flush. Just gotta trace these edges, make my cut, position my template that I just made about here, cut it.
Okay, now that we finished building our bed bump outs, we're gonna start working on this bump out in our kitchen area. Nico's gonna work on that, and I'm gonna be running wire to our lights for our bump outs. Fits pretty nice.
Sure does. We got this frame built, now we need the backing. We have this scrap piece right here.
Pro tip, put painter's tape along the edge of your cut to prevent the thin veneer of the plywood from ripping off.
So we held up this piece that was cut out from our other window box, and we held it up on the window, and then we took some measurements and we marked on here the measurements from the side of the box. And so then we put it into place here on the back piece, and we just traced it out, and now we're gonna cut out this shape, and that will be our window. And then we can, after that, attach this to this because it's not attached right now. We have all of our boxes in place. This is the one we just finished putting together today. This one is just sitting here. We finished building the box yesterday. And this one is actually fastened into our walls. So, yep, that is our bed there. And this is just our kitchen area, so there's a little more space. I am running our wires now on the back of our newly installed bed frame. So I'm just kind of getting all the chaos together so they can all go to that side of the van, the passenger side behind me, where our fuse block and battery bank is all gonna be. We are about to test our dimmer switch on this LED strip that we have in our bump out there. Got our battery, got our little switch. Nico's gonna touch these wires to the battery, and I'm gonna turn the switch, and I'll put you guys here so we can see this turn on. Ooh. If I have it at a lower setting on a camera, just because of the frame rate, it looks like it's flashing, but in real life it is not. That's it in full mode, and it does dim and it will look like it's flashing, but it's not actually. For anyone wondering how these switches are wired, it is a little bit confusing and kind of hard to see here. But basically our black wire from our lights is going to the red wire here. Our red wire is going to the white. From the white, it's a positive wire going to the positive terminal on the battery. And then from the black wire on the switch goes to the negative on our battery. So that's how we wire this dimmer switch, and it works really well.
It works so well.
All right, another day working on the van. We are working still on the window bump out. I'll show you where we're at. Basically for these ones, the bump outs will have windows. There's this gap so you can see our insulation. We first ordered, what is it, automotive seal?
Automotive rubber seal, which was recommended by Britt and Mike, and I thought it was a great idea. Didn't work for us.
It didn't work. We got the automotive stuff and it didn't quite fill this gap. This problem, I guess, could be avoided if we really pressed this box when we made the box, if we made it come up nice and flush, but we kind of wanted to keep our insulation fluffy like this so it actually insulates, because as soon as you compress the thin slit, it loses R value. And we figured we didn't have to squish it, and Nico will still fit in between these bump outs on the bed, but that's just something to consider if you're doing this project. But we're gonna probably build something that fits in here out of wood. I've seen a couple different tutorials on YouTube of people doing something like this, which is a little bit more of a headache than what I thought, so we're gonna spend much more time. Which is the story of this van.
Yay.
So first step is, okay, we measured this gap, and so to go underneath all the way back to the wall, it is about 2 inches. Just under there, we could get it away with about 1.5 inches. And so we ripped some wood off of this fit guy here. We got some pieces. I think this is about 1.5 inches wide, which we can put behind our window. So this piece, I've just kind of slid it behind where our bump out's gonna be, and it fits really nicely just right underneath the edge of our window thing here. Try to make this nice and flush when we add it on here. Maybe we'll take a router to route out this edge down to meet this flush. And now the trickier part is we use a tool to get this exact corner here. We might actually just be able to use our templates for the window. That actually might work. Anyways, so we'll get that edge and we'll cut a piece like that, and same thing on that side, so we can connect and have it be a nice, I don't know, window shaped frame inside this bump out. So I'm gonna take this piece of wood, which we cut out of our bed bump out back panel, and I'm gonna use it as a template on this thick piece of wood here. I'm gonna bring it down about 1/2 inch, which is the width of this board. So that's what we need to nail it in, is just about 1/2 inch. And I'm gonna trace it, and we're gonna cut that out.
Hello?
All right, we're just testing out this piece on all of our window corners. Fits really nicely on that one. We'll just have to take the router a little bit in on here, but otherwise, like, this looks really sweet. So we've now cut this piece down to be the length that we want for this. So then we're just, when we attach these, we'll just line up this seam here nicely. And on the other side as well. We'll probably fill the crack with wood filler later, and then it's all gonna be painted white anyways. How are we feeling about it?
Not perfect, but it'll do.
That's how this whole van is.
Earlier, I pocket holed this piece and tried to screw it into this, but the wood was cracking. So now I have this crazy clamp set up. I have a block holding this longer piece in place, which is held here as well. And then my curved piece is held down here. And then this clamp will, once I glue in between here, this clamp will push it up like that and hold it there. And then I'm gonna take a nail gun and cross my fingers that it doesn't split when I fire one. I'm just gonna fire one like diagonally and hopefully nice and straight so it doesn't come through anywhere.
Hopefully that's enough for it to grab onto.
It didn't work out that well. The nail started to crack, so I ended up putting a couple staples in the bottom and then also right there. And then I covered it with glue, and then I glued all the seams. So this one's kinda janky, wonky, probably not the best way. So then I tried another method with this little test piece. This is the thickness as our board, and I'm gonna do a dowel. It works a lot better, probably gonna be a lot more secure and less of a chance of everything cracking.
Let's see how this frame looks. And the joints are pretty janky looking, but those will be covered.
It's not my best work,
No, this is like
but it might do.
Frankenstein's frame. Bit of a gap there, but we're just deciding to live with that, I think. And then we'll just attach this outer box thing. Attach that there, and that will meet. And then anywhere where there's like this lip, we will come through, I think, with the router and make it flush. Okay, we're gonna put glue on the frame now, and we're gonna glue and nail it while it's in the van, so that way we have it precisely where we want it around the window. Just because it doesn't perfectly line up with our bump out box, we will be bringing the bump out box to the frame afterwards. So one thing that you should be sure to do when you are nail gunning your window frames while they are in the van is to make sure your nail length is correct and also the depth that the nail gun is shooting them is correct, because you might end up almost nailing a hole through the outside of your van. In our case, we just need to make sure the depth is right because it shot through the front board, through the back board, not all the way through, but all the way through the front board and into the wall of the van. So luckily it did not actually puncture, so not all the way, so it doesn't have a hole, but it does have a visible dent.
Once the dowel was in place, we dipped it into some black paint so we could see where it lined up on the connecting piece of wood so we could drill a hole there.
This frame we've nailed onto here, and so now we can clamp it and let it dry out of here. Today we are figuring out how to use our router to make this edge more flush with the frame that we now have attached to our boxes. Okay, we're gonna try the router.
You sound so confident.
No. It's always the first time for everything.
Failure.
So now this front piece is flush with this frame. It looks pretty good. Gonna make sure it's nice and smooth, and then it'll all look hopefully as one piece once it's all painted. Just gonna take a little hand sander, fix up this rough corner.
So I just got done with filing down the edges right here. This back edge was kind of sticking out. What I did is I couldn't get the router back on here because of this, and the guard is too big. I took this rounded file and just shaved it down like that, and then I took some sandpaper, got it nice and smooth, and then for this top edge I just used the sander and just pretty much ground down this whole line. Yeah, it looks pretty good, nice and flush. Another thing we had to do, there's some brad nails that aren't quite sunken in. So I have done is I'm taking this punch with the flat edge, lining it up with the brad nail, and then tapping it down. So now it sits flush. Now we'll just wood fill that.
Hi guys, today we are painting our bed bump out boxes. We finally picked out a shade of white that we like for our walls. And so now we're gonna paint the bump outs and then we will install them. Okay, we finished up with painting. We did 2 coats of paint today. So let's show you our boxes and then we will install them in the van probably tomorrow.
Hello from the future. This is the part of our video called Lessons Learned, where we go over everything that we learned in the process of this last video, as well as what's been working and what hasn't been working since living in our fully built out van. Okay, so our first lesson learned is that you can actually make both of your driver's side and passenger side bump outs at the same time. And the reason for that is because the pieces will be the same size. So like your top and bottom, your top piece on both pieces will be the same size. Your bottom piece will be the same size, as will all the sides. So you may as well just, rather than making one and then the other like we did, just cut 2 of those same pieces. That'll save you a whole bunch of time.
Yeah, then you won't have to figure out what size taper block you need again. Lesson 2 is label all those pieces that you just cut. We got kind of confused of which was the front side or the back side, or which side was inside piece or the outside piece. So just label inside back of bump out or something like that.
Going off of that, and don't just label like this is the back driver's side piece, but label on that which side is facing upwards, which side is facing downwards, things like that, just so that way before you assemble everything you kind of know what lines up with what. The next tip we have would be to actually do your bed bump outs before doing the bed slats themselves. And the reason for that, as you saw in our video, we had to route out for the metal beams. You can avoid that step. If we had already built the bump outs, then we would have just cut the slit in the bump outs and put the bed frame on the bed bump outs instead of doing it this way. I think it just might be easier to do the bed frame second and do the bed bump outs first.
Lesson 4 is pertaining to our window frames that we built. This was probably the most tedious thing we did in this entire process, other than the taper cuts. One thing that I wish we would have done is left more than ½ an inch of wood to build that whole frame. And I say that because, as you saw, we struggled. I tried pocket holing, there wasn't enough room to pocket hole, the wood cracked. I tried brad nailing things together, the wood kept cracking. They're still holding up just fine and they look great, but just if you're gonna do this method, maybe just do 3/4 of an inch of wood for that whole frame.
Give yourself extra wood to nail or screw into, so that way you can avoid having a Frankenstein frame held together with staples
And a lot of glue.
and a lot of glue. It'll look a lot nicer and save you a lot of headaches.
One more thing to say about the frame. I would recommend, if you're gonna do this method, to leave a little bit more of a gap from the wood frame to the actual window. You don't want it to be touching.
If you leave a little bit more space between the wood frames and the window, that will prevent you from hearing squeaks or rubbing. Sometimes when the van is in motion or if the wood is expanded in the heat, we can hear it rub against the metal part of the window frame, and that can be annoying. So if you give yourself just a little bit more space than we did, then you can maybe avoid those annoying sounds. Okay, that's it for lessons learned for this video. Please go ahead and give this video a like and comment below. We are happy to answer any of your questions. As usual, we have linked everything that we used in this video in the description box below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.